We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies. This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome 80-20 baseball community. Welcome coaches, parents, players, the 80-20 baseball podcast, the 80-20 baseball masterclass, where we focus on mastering the big needle movers, where we discuss the key details of those things coaches must do well, what we must do well, coaches, in order to have big success, having a team that goes out there and competes, plays hard, plays disciplined, lifts one another up, good teammates across the board, and executes the key fundamentals of baseball. In today's episode, spring training trip. I got a spring training trip coming up. I'm fired up about. Hit that real quick, but then we're going to get into Scott Rolen, Hall of Famer, going to the Hall of Fame. Well-known third baseman. Most of you listening to this show, you remember Scott Rolen. It wasn't that long ago, but you grew up watching him, or you were in high school or college watching Scott Rolen playing. What can we learn from Scott Rolen and his induction into the Hall of Fame? There's something to be said about part of his game that I think we all can learn from and use to be better youth coaches on two different levels. One as a coach, and also one to get our players better moving forward. And we're going to discuss a key stat, a key statistic that is used across baseball. It's used very often in youth baseball, high school baseball, and there's a huge error with it, and there's an omission in it, and that's important. We talk about batting average. Batting average omits the quality of the hit. A double is worth the same as a single, or a single is worth just as much when it comes to batting average as a triple or a double, and batting average omits walks. And those are two huge things, right? Hitting extra base hits and walks, and batting average doesn't factor those in for the most part. We're going to talk about another very popular stat that has a flaw with it, and I'll teach you a workaround and something we can learn from that, just to caution on that, to make you a better coach, to be better coaches. In last week's episode, we learned how to be better coaches via Trevor Lawrence, Elon Musk, Tony Gwynn, and Jocko Willink. And if you didn't catch episode 166, go back and get all the episodes. All right, so I just booked a trip. The family, we just booked a trip to Scottsdale, Phoenix, that area in March. And anybody who follows baseball closely knows that area, and as well as Florida, in March, spring training. You know what I love about spring training and why I think it's a great place to take kids? And speaking of which, I'm meeting my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, their kids, my nephew. He's a big baseball fan, and we're meeting out there. They're coming in from Boulder, and we're flying down from Boise, and we're excited. One of the best things about spring training is the interaction, the closeness, the feel you can get on those backfields as a parent, a coach, dad, mom with the kids. You can get up close and personal, much more so. You can get up close. You can literally be right up along the fence on those backfields, and you'll see the major leaguers, the minor leaguers. It's all amazing baseball, and you can be right up there. You can hear them talking. You can listen to the coaches. You're right up in the mix for the most part. Of course, you're not right up in it like in the middle of the huddle if they're talking, or in the middle of the batting cage and things like that, but it's a really cool environment, and it makes for a great trip. There's a lot of coaches out there, a lot of you that are listening. By the way, love the emails, love to hear the success stories from last year, all of last year. I love getting these emails from new coaches that have found the show and they're really liking it, and that fires me up. And I ask a lot of times like where they're coaching, where they're at, or they'll tell me where they're at. And there's a lot of snow states or colder weather, winter type states when it comes to the listeners and location is. And I'll tell you what, you should try to plan a spring training trip. It's great for two reasons. One, the weather, and so the adults get some weather. You get to thaw out a little bit. It's beautiful weather down there, of course. And two, you can get up close and see things up close when it comes to the baseball and get your kids' interest up with the game. They can connect. They can get autographs a little bit better. They can see the game up close. They can relate to it a little bit better because they see it. They see the players grinding on the backfield, taking fungo ground balls and hitting the cages, really sweating sweating and working rather than all the glitz and glamour of the big stadiums. They can relate to them a little bit more. And it's just a really cool, fun family environment. So if you can, get out to spring training. Florida's got spring training. Arizona, great spring training environment. They really try to cater to the kids. It's just really cool. If you've been, you know what I'm talking about. Just really a neat thing to get up in the morning, get the coffee, get a little breakfast, and go out to the field early and do that. And then catch a game if you can. But catching the games is actually, in my opinion, the least fun thing for the kids. It's seeing the players on the backfield, seeing them up close and personal as they walking by between fields or between the cages. It's just really cool to be able to get much closer and see the players. In fact, we went to spring training. My best friend's family and I, we met out there. It was about 4 years ago. And we were literally just going through from our Airbnb where we were staying, and we were just driving. We were going through a set of homes, and I look out the window and go, hey, there's Johnny Cueto. This was an empty neighborhood. We're going through an empty neighborhood on some back street, and there's nobody around. It's empty. There's houses, but nobody's out. It's 9:30 in the morning. It's very quiet. And I see this guy running along the side of the street on the sidewalk, and he doesn't have any baseball gear on, but you recognize Johnny Cueto. Of course, those of you that know Johnny Cueto, like, he would stand out. He probably lived in the neighborhood, was getting some early work in before he headed to the field. Probably wasn't pitching that day and getting some work in. But nonetheless, it's really cool to see that. There's a steakhouse in Scottsdale. It's pretty popular. If you know it, you know it. And you go in there and there's always players in there, and it's just cool for the kids to see that. It's just a really cool environment, definitely for the kids, and just a good baseball vibe. It gets you going into that mode of baseball. So spring training, fired up to get out to Scottsdale, the Phoenix area, to watch some baseball spring training. So I'll keep you posted on that. Now, Scott Rolen, speaking of professional major leaguer, longtime great major leaguer, Scott Rolen. Now, I know this is a youth baseball podcast, but I try to find, as I've said this before, I try to find players that we all know or at least can go see footage of. I can't say Scott Johnson from down the street, who's 13, he plays in the local Pony League. Let me tell you about him. Of course, none of you are going to know who Scott Johnson in the local Pony League is here in Boise. But if I say Scott Rolen, many of you know who I'm talking about. You remember watching him play. We can relate and we can connect and learn from this player that we all know, or you could easily go look up hours and hours of highlights and interviews and all sorts of things. Scott Rolen got inducted to the Hall of Fame last week. Now, I'm not going to dive in too deep on Scott Rolen, but what we can learn from this is Scott Rolen was an above average hitter his entire career. His weighted runs created plus, which as of now and what we have in public, is pretty much the gold standard when it comes to a statistic that tells us how productive a hitter was and how much he contributed to his team scoring runs. And Scott Rolen weighted runs created plus was 122 for his career. 100 is average. So he was essentially 22% more productive than the average player for a lot of years. So he's 22% more productive, which is pretty good. The elite hitters, you'll get only a handful that are over 150. But the average player at the major league level is 100. Now, Scott Rolen defensively was an 8-time Gold Glove Award winner. Now, when it comes to defense, like hitting and pitching, this can be measured a lot more accurately using the data and using not just numbers, but using these cameras, the Hawkeye, before stadiums were rigged up with TrackMan, and Hawkeye's an optical video system. I'm not going to act like I know how the technology itself works, but I understand what it does, and it can measure every single movement on the field down to like within of an accuracy level of 2 millimeters anywhere on the field. Incredible. So if you literally twitch your forearm a little and you're in center field, if the center fielder twitches their forearm a little bit, it's going to pick that up. Hawkeye is the newer system, but it was TrackMan, and they're tracking defensive metric. They can tell on a ball that's hit to a certain spot at a certain speed, they know if that was a play that the average shortstop or third baseman should have got, or if it's an elite play or not, right? You see those on MLB.com or MLB channel. It'll be like catch probability or that they make the out probability. And so how does this relate to youth baseball? Scott Rolen defensively was extremely good. His UZR rating, his ultimate zone rating, divided by 150. I don't want to get too much into the numbers here, but basically the best defensive stat we have is UZR divided by 150. And this is run saved, defensive runs saved per 150 games. And he averaged 13 runs saved per 150 games defensively. In his career, he saved like 126 runs on on defense. 126 runs. He saved above average. Above average. How many wins is that? If a lot of these games are decided by 1 and 2 runs and you save 126, how many wins is that with your glove? Now, I read some stuff, I should say, about Scott Rolen not being as coachable and things like that. And that's something you got to keep an eye on, right? I don't know firsthand, of course, but I did read some manager quotes that he was tough to coach, but I don't want to really comment on that. Some of you might know more about Scott Rolen. You followed him throughout his career. I didn't follow him that closely to know all that stuff, but I can say this. He was 22% above average on offense, which wouldn't stand out. So if you're out there at a tryout and you're picking out your players or you're putting a team together and you have all these players and you see somebody who's he's better than average hitter, what if he is way above average defensively? Scott Rolen was an elite defender. He was elite. He was elite by everybody that voted 8 gold gloves. That's elite. You get 8 gold gloves, that is elite. And the statistics, the measurements, the technology, it all backed it up. In fact, it said that he saved 126 more runs than the average third baseman in his career. That is a ton of wins. That is a ton of wins. So Scott Rolen might have been a player where he was undervalued because a lot of teams might have wanted a guy that could hit really good. They wanted the huge slugger at third base that dropped 40 or 35 home runs, and he didn't do that. But he was above average hitter, 22% above average in run production, and he was an elite defensive player. So this is a player that you might look for, a player that you can add to your team. There might be some hidden value out there in your area of a player who maybe isn't even average at the plate, but's really good on defense, that really hustles and gets every ball. You might have a player in your area that you could add to your team that maybe hits below average, that everybody would recognize, all the coaches would see as a below average hitter, but he can drag bunt. You could teach him to drag bunt. You could teach him the plate discipline. That'll take care of some of the swing issues, some of the hitting issues. And then you teach him how to drag bunt. And then you let him go to work on defense. And as long as he's a good hard worker and he's coachable, you might have yourself a really great pickup there. Again, you never take a player with a bad attitude, ever. It doesn't matter how good they are. You do not take that player. Trust me. Go watch the movie Draft Day, Kevin Costner. It'll sum up exactly the message I'm trying to share right now. Don't fall for the talent tease. Don't add a player to your team that's going to be uncoachable. Don't put a player on your team that's not going to get along and jive with the other players. Don't add a player or have a player on your team that's going to be a problem with the team culture. No matter how good they are, even if they're the best player in your league, don't do it. Don't do it. And by the way, there's usually another player. If you're not getting that player, or if there's a draft, you're not picking that player. When you skip them over, the next player is not that bad because that player is obviously going at the very top or towards the top. So there's probably going to be another really good player to select, but it could be much better for your team. It's a high quality kid. And you say, well, they're kids, coach both their kids. I get it. And you really hope they all figure it out and you hope they all grow up and they all turn out okay. I get it. But I don't think we should keep sending the message to these kids that have bad attitudes, are not coachable, are disrespectful. They bully other kids. They bully the teammates. And we keep picking them number one. We keep picking them at the top. What are we telling them? What they're doing? Hey, you're a first round pick. No, we got to stop doing that. Send the message to the parents, the kids. And you could say, we'll find another team. Okay, great. So Scott Rolen, above average hitter, elite defender. So don't get caught up in, the best hitters, the best hitters. Look at those players that can play elite defense. And maybe elite defense is they're quick. They can get to the ball. They can really catch things. Hey, great for the outfield. Maybe they don't have a great arm. Can't really hit that great, but they can run down the ball and they can catch a lot of balls. Or they're fearless and somewhat athletic, maybe at catching. You put them at catching. They're back there and you get some fearless player, somebody who's aggressive, really wants to get better. Maybe you put them at catcher. But you could find spots. Look for hidden value. And I think Scott Rolen, there's a lot of hidden value there because I'm seeing so many comments about he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. He shouldn't be. Now, I'm not saying he should be a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying he should be or shouldn't be. But I do see that there's a lot of pushback on Scott Rolen getting elected to the Hall of Fame. And then I go look at his defensive metrics and I go look at the Gold Glove totals and I look at that and I go, he's elite. And he was a 22% above average run producer his entire career. I don't know. That doesn't seem like you should be automatically out of the box, no pun intended, saying he's not a Hall of Famer. Scott Rolen, I think, he wasn't overlooked. Of course, he's a Hall of Famer. He's an all-star. He wasn't overlooked. Everybody in Major League Baseball knew who he was. But my point is, there's a lot of people that overlooked, I think, his contribution to his team winning. I thought there was some hidden value to him as a player, and it's our job to find that as a coach. It's our job to find that within our own kids and then share it out, pump it up, pump them up with that. Even if they're not the best hitter, there's something there that we can pump them up about and really sell the importance. And it's truthful. You're being truthful. The importance of how they can help the team. I worked with Coach Tim Murray. Tim Murray's been on the show. He was the Orange County Coach of the Year, Orange County, California High School Coach of the Year, which is a hotbed. That's some of the best coaching in the country, in a concentrated area, I should say. There's great coaching everywhere, but in a concentrated area, that's some of the best, highly concentrated baseball in the country, if not the most concentrated, high-level quality baseball in the country. And he won Coach of the Year, and we had him on this podcast, and I'll tell you what, he was so good at telling and getting every kid to believe and understand that they had something really good to add to the team. They had value, not monetary value. What I'm saying is value, like they had worth. They were contributors. They were helping the team. You can call it self-esteem and all that, but I like to think of like there's some value. They brought value to the team, and they feel good. When you feel valuable to the team and you feel valuable to the cause, and your team's drive towards winning games, being a better team, having more fun, that's really great. And he did such a good job of finding that in every single player. And yeah, it doesn't stand out all the time, and most of the time it doesn't. You had to dig, you had to look, you had to really look 2-3 times. And when you spot it, you go, that's what that kid's got really good. Or those are the things that might get overlooked. Those are things that can really help add to our team's culture, the environment, us winning more games, etc. All right, quote of the week. There is nothing worse than doing the wrong thing well. I got a bonus quote. I got another quote from the same person. Here's the second coaching quote of the week. Quote, doing the right thing is more important than doing the thing right. Doing the right thing is more important. This is where 80-20 comes in. It's the 80-20 principle. We want to first do the right things, the things that are the bigger priorities, the bigger needle movers, and then we want to do those very right. But we do not want to do a bunch of the stuff that's not the right thing. What's the right thing? The priority, the big needle movers. Definitely with youth baseball, with the constraints on field time and just how long you've been with the team, how much experience the kids have. We can't coach them like advanced high school, college, and definitely not like college and pro players for sure, and even advanced high school players. We have to coach them where they're at, and we got to do what's best for them at the point in their youth baseball or their baseball journey. We have to do the best for them at the point in which they're at now. And so these quotes by Peter Drucker. Some of you know Peter Drucker. You've heard that name before. He lived from 1909 to 2005, an Australian-American consultant, management consultant, educator, author. He wrote a lot of books, time management. He's considered by many the founder of modern management. He's got tons of books. And most of you have heard of Peter Drucker. And I think this is so important. And this is really one of the fundamental principles and foundational pieces of the 80-20 baseball community and our coaching philosophy is there's nothing, as Peter Drucker said, quote, there's nothing worse than doing the wrong thing well. And even better, the second quote, doing the right thing is more important than doing the thing right. And so we hear a lot of this doing the thing right, do it right. We got to first know what are we doing and how much are we doing it? And that is where the 80-20 baseball principle, the 80-20 rule comes into play. Doing the right thing is more important. Coaching up the right things. Coaching up the right things is more important than coaching the thing right. And in baseball, it's not how much you know about the game as much as you can create the environment where they're working on the right things. And you can create an environment where players are really getting a lot of high quality reps. All right. Peter Drucker, always a great source of wisdom. Last part here. It's a quick hitter. There's a huge error with a stat in youth baseball, all throughout baseball, high school baseball. That stat is fielding percentage. There's a huge omission with fielding percentage. The omission that the stat inherently has, that the thing that it omits is it only counts the plays, the balls that the player got to. Fielding percentage almost never gives an error to a player that didn't get to the ball. So if a shortstop didn't get to the ball in the hole or didn't get to the ball to the right or left, if they didn't get to the ball, almost never do they have an error given to them. It's almost always a hit. So another way to look at fielding percentage. Fielding percentage, now I'm not saying it's a bad stat. I'm just saying it's got a huge omission that I think is important. Fielding percentage is a very good stat for quantifying and evaluating, assessing players making the routine plays. And that's important, absolutely. So fielding percentage is a great measurement of players making the plays that come right to them, the routine plays. right? Fielding percentage is a good assessment of players making the routine plays. Great. But what if you got a player, let me give you this example. You got a kid that makes 8 errors in a season versus a kid that makes 3 errors in a season. Same position, same amount of attempts, let's say, right? To make this an even comparison. A kid makes 8 errors in a season. The other kid makes 3 errors in a season. The kid that makes 8 errors in a season may still be the better defensive player. You're like, well, he made more errors. He made more than double the errors of the player that only made 3 errors. But he may still be the better defensive player because if the kid that made the 8 errors gets the 10 more ground balls or fly balls and makes the out than the other player, those extra plays, those extra 10 outs will offset the 5 extra errors insofar as those errors are not egregious. As long as those additional 5 errors don't cost a whole lot of runs. But you also got to figure that they got to a lot of plays that might not just prevent one run, but could prevent multiple runs also. You see where I'm at with that? So if you have a kid that can make more plays and they make 10 more plays a season than the other player, but they have 5 more errors, the player that makes 10 more plays and has 5 more errors is more valuable in my opinion, for the most part. For the most part. There's definitely some nuance to that, of course. But keep that in mind, all right? Keep that in mind. I have played with players. I had teammates that I felt did not go as hard for the ball because they knew if they got to it, it was going to be a tough play. And if they made an error, it was going to go against them. So they would rather ease up a little and not make the play and not risk the chance of having an error added to their stat line. If we're rewarding players that make plays, and then we also factor in how many errors they make, the two together, you're going to get players that are hustling more. They're going to make more plays. They're going to most likely be better players insofar as they're not terrible on the routine plays. So I'm going to end it on that. Again, we're not trying to be contrarian by any means. Can't stand people that want to be different just to be different. But we're looking at everything going, is it the best way? Or like the BASF commercials. Some of you are old enough to remember in the 90s, late 80s, there was these commercials on all the time. BASF. I don't know where they were located. I don't know anything about, but their tagline was so catchy. It's going to be like BASF. We don't make the products you buy. We make the products you buy better. Now, that doesn't encapsulate everything here about 80-20 baseball. We're trying to just bring a better version of baseball. We're not saying we invented or made up or brought this wisdom or discovered it. And we're not looking to make it better just to make it better if it can't be made better. But we're definitely looking to be better coaches. And that's why you show up. And that's why I'm getting a lot of positive emails, coaches that are here. The numbers are flying up right now. Go over to 80-20 Baseball. Get the drill design guide, free drill design guide. It's a 21-page PDF. It'll give you a good paradigm on how to design a drill. It'll give you the paradigm. It's not going to show you the drill itself, but it's going to give you the paradigm. It's teaching you to fish, not giving you fish. Follow on Twitter, 8020_baseball, 8020_baseball. I don't only do the social media, but I'm on Twitter. There's a nice baseball community on Twitter that I like and I follow. So I'm on there. Support the podcast at a minimum. Leave a rating, a review, an honest rating, a review. Email me your success stories, your questions, Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com or over at the website, 8020baseball.com. Hit the contact page. Next week, top coaching tweets of the month. Got a couple really good ones. Top coaching tweets of the month. Also, I'm lining up some interviews coming up in the near future. I'm lining up some interviews I'm really excited about. Coaching course. I think you all are going to really like the coaching course that I'm putting together. You're going to get a ton from it. It's coming along a little slower than I'd like, but it's because I want it to be good. I'll keep you posted on that. Don't worry. You'll be the first to know here on the 80-20 Baseball podcast. In fact, I'm going to give you all a better price when it comes out. All the listeners here, 80-20 Baseball. And we'll see you next Tuesday when the next episode comes out, our weekly get-together. Until then, take care of yourself, your health. Really take care of your health this time of year. It seems like a lot of stuff going around. Take care of your family, your close friends. Be there for them. That's why you're a coach. That's why you're there for them. Keep that going. And take this information. Get it ready to use. Or if you're in a warm weather area, get it out to the field right now. Or if you're in a cold area that has an indoor facility, take this out there. Take it to the case. Take it to the field. Start utilizing it. Put it into action, put it into play, because knowledge is no good. Information does us no good. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is useless. Information is useless unless we use it and put it into action. All right, it's been Coach Bo. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.